You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. All right, tell us about it, man. About the prospect here that LSU landed.
Yeah, Michael Daugherty is a really versatile prospect who plays for one of the best high school programs in the country. I mean, if you turn on ESPN and those early fall showcases, usually Grayson is on there, and Michael Daugherty is one of the players that has played really well for them over the past few years. He's somebody that I think LSU can see playing in a nickel safety role with that ability to also move back to safety. But right now, I would see him as a nickel. You have Greg Brooks, who has played a lot of nickel so far in spring, could move outside from what he told us last weekend. But you also have Sage Ryan, and then beyond that, they need to address the position. So Michael Daugherty is the first defensive commit of the class, 4-star prospect on the On3 consensus, the number 22 safety overall. LSU beat out North Carolina, which had some ties with his family as well. So this was a good job by Kerry Cooks. He identified him early on. He was actually even recruiting him all the way back when he was an analyst at Notre Dame. So a solid pickup to kick things off on the defense side of the ball.
Is there a comp for him?
I don't know about a comp. I just think he's somebody that can play in that slot. He doesn't have that track speed like Kerry Vincent did, at least verified. He's got plenty of speed. From what you could see on tape, but that nickel spot is really where he fits well, and he's just been able to be so versatile for that Grayson defense. But at LSU, I just feel like that nickel spot is where he's best suited, and these days that's a really, really valuable spot. It says a lot about what LSU staff thinks of him.
Is how important of a position is safety going to be in this year's class, Billy? Because it does seem like LSU is kind of loaded at that spot in 2022.
Yeah, it is a huge position for 2023, in the recruiting class, because they've really got to restock that position. You have some players like Jay Ward who could be on the way out, to the NFL. You also have some younger players who haven't necessarily proven themselves just yet. So for this staff, they're really prioritizing that position in a big way. I think we could see 3 safeties in this class, including Michael Daugherty. So they are on Ryan Yates, who just announced today that he'll be announcing a commitment bright and early on Friday, and he's a 4-star safety out of Texas, and LSU sits in a really good spot there. So pretty quickly, you could see 2 of the 3 spots taken up, and then they can kind of shoot for some of the big dogs like Yonel Aguero, who has been on campus a couple times. He's a guy that's in line to be a 5-star. Derek Williams, who's one of the best players in Louisiana and could end up a 5-star. There are a lot of other guys out there that'll, once I think these 2 dominoes have dropped, they can really shoot for the stars, literally with those 5-star types and go from there.
Let's look a little bit. I want to look a little bit at the 2023 class. We'll delve into some numbers, needs, and other stuff here in just a second. But, Billy, best you could tell, how is Brian Kelly and the new staff sort of being received as they're putting together their first full class here in 2023?
Yeah, I think it's been going well. They've done a really good job of getting guys that they want and are targeting on campus, and in some cases multiple times. Michael Daugherty visited unofficially in, I believe, early March, and then was back on campus for that official visit. And you have Yonel Aguero, who's taken 2 visits. Just today, Dante Moore, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, locked in his official visit after he took an unofficial visit earlier this spring to LSU. So you're seeing a lot of these players get on campus, and they're all top targets. They're not necessarily guys that are passing through town for a tournament. There's a little bit of that, but for the most part, this has been a really targeted effort to get their top prospects on campus, for them to show them facilities, meet with the coaching staff, get the plan that Brian Kelly and his staff have laid out. I think it's been well received, and we'll see kind of just if it pays off. Of course, it's still early on. They have just 3 commitments, but they're about to start picking it up as far as official visits go with the month of April with the spring game. And then in June, it's going to be really busy. And that's where we'll see if they can really start stacking some recruiting momentum.
Hey, Billy Embody's with us from On3Sports on Twitter at Billy Embody. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned just 3 members of the class so far. What should we make of the 3 commitments so far? What they've done, and then obviously just the number, which is relatively low to some other programs right now.
Yeah, I mean, Omarion Miller is one of the best receivers in the country, and he's an in-state prospect that they've held on to so far, during this recruiting process, and he was committed to Ed Ogeron and his staff. Then you add Mac Markaway, who has a ton of ties, played with Kerry Cooks in college, and it comes from a family of tight ends. I mean, he's got a cousin in the league. His dad played college football at Iowa. His uncle also played. And he's somebody that addresses a need there at tight end, and he's one of the better ones in the country. If they get Ryan Yates tomorrow, they're really on a roll as far as the safety position goes. I wouldn't worry too much about the number right now. It was a few years ago, Ed Ogeron and his staff, I believe, were sitting there with the number 1 class in April. It included guys like Rakim Jarrett, Jermaine Burton. I think Keanu Cote was in there, but maybe he was later on in the summer. And everything was all great, but in the end, none of those guys signed with LSU, and so it's about building it the right way. And that wasn't an indictment on O, but Brian Kelly's pretty adamant that when these guys commit, they need to be done. They need to shut it down. And if they're not ready to do that, then he just says, all right, well, let's circle back here, and you can come back for another visit to see if this is the place for you, or take other visits, but. Overall, I just think they're doing a good job of kind of building some slow momentum. We'll see if it pays off in the end, but I wouldn't get too concerned with the low number right now. I think we could see it start to pick up as the spring and summer rolls along.
All right, 2 more things for you. Can you go into the calendar a little bit and how that shapes up here as you move through, as you mentioned, spring and summer?
Yeah, now with spring ball still rolling on in the spring game, they're still hosting prospects. They're going to have some official visitors in for the spring game. I mentioned Dante Moore, the number 4 quarterback overall in the country, a guy who's a 5-star prospect, and then Carnell Tate, another 5-star prospect. They're going to have him on campus for the spring game, and he's really close with Dante Moore. He's one of the best receivers in the country. So you're going to see those type of visits pick up now, and then June is going to be crazy with official visits. The first one that I was made aware of, at least today, was 4-star defensive lineman Kendrick Gilbert, letting me know that he was coming in for that first weekend in June, and that summer will just be that month will just be crazy with official visits and camps and all of that. And then in a couple of days, we see the staff get back out onto the trail. Or at least they're allowed to get back out onto the trail and go see prospects as they start picking up their high school spring balls, and they can do that all the way until May 31st. So it's kind of that mini sprint before the end of June when it all goes dead for July.
You mentioned don't be too concerned about the numbers right now. When do we know how Brian Kelly likes to structure a class? Is it something where, some coaches want as much hay in the barn before fall starts? Obviously, you'll take all those commitments. Some want to wait. Do we know what Brian Kelly's preference is there, or the staff?
I'm not sure. I think it does go back to what I kind of said earlier, where he wants guys that want to be committed. And, that's kind of any coach, but just from what I've heard, he's been pretty adamant about that. And, I think recruiting in the South sometimes, silent commits, happen all the time. And so that's something that I think we'll hear about at some point with a prospect here or there that ends up not working out. But for the most part, it seems like it's something that he's pretty adamant about, guys committing and going public and doing that whole thing, rather than maybe saying, I'm committed. Or, okay, well, why are you going public and things like that? That's kind of just a little bit as far as what I've picked up from him. And, he's letting a lot of these guys play out their process. I think, you look across the board at all the different positions, and it doesn't seem like any of these guys are in a rush. I'll be honest with you, not many of them are. And so I think that plays into LSU's hand a little bit. They are playing a little bit of catch-up on the 2023 class. Any new staff across the country is. But they've done a good job getting guys on campus, and we'll see how it pays off in the spring and summer.
Latest is 4-star safety Michael Daugherty. He is now a member of LSU's 2023 commitment list. You read about it there at On3Sports. He's on Twitter at Billy Embody. We appreciate it as always, man. Have a great weekend.
Anytime, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.